Good evening. We're going to reconvene the public session. We'll have a report of actions taken in closed session by the city attorney.
Mr. Mayor, there was no reportable action. Council provided direction to staff on all four matters.
Thank you, Colin. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance now by Councilmember Sullivan and the invocation by our dear friend, Pastor Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. I have been praying for you today, not knowing what's on your agenda. I've just been praying for you today. And I have to tell you, every time I come in this room and I see that in God we trust, my heart is filled with so much joy and pride for this city who dares to take a stand. I would like to start with just Proverbs 8:14. The Lord says this of himself: "Counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign and rulers decree justice. By me princes rule and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently will find me." Would you pray with me tonight? Lord, you indeed are wisdom and understanding. You are good and loving. Thank you for establishing this governing council. We invite you to guide every thought, every word tonight. Reveal your love, your plans, your justice. Thank you, Lord, for each person here tonight. It is extraordinary, the care that this community shows. May tonight be a time of wisdom and strength and unity. Bless this wonderful city, all the elected officials, the staff, and the citizens. God bless the United States of America, and God bless Horsetown, USA. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
It's always so good to see you.
It's always good to see you.
Thanks. Good night. Okay, we were going to have an introduction of our new fire battalion chief, but Chief Otterman has sent him on out fighting fires and doing battalion chief stuff. So we're going to reschedule that for another day. Okay. Thank you, Chief. So tonight, the City Council is recognizing February as Black History Month by presenting a proclamation to honor community members who have contributed to the economic, cultural, spiritual, and/or the political development of the city. And I'm just going to read a portion of this proclamation. Whereas the 2025 theme, African Americans and Labor, focuses on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds intersect with the collective experiences of African Americans. And the city of Norco recognizes its local Black history and reflects on the strides we have made to ensure all citizens feel accepted and included. And whereas the city of Norco is a diverse community that is honored to celebrate the history and legacies of African Americans who have contributed to the economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development of our city, state, and country. Now, therefore, I, Greg Newton, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 2025 as Black History Month. And what I'd like to do now is, this is an idea that I had discussed with our city clerk on these proclamations, how we can do much more as a city and further use the resources that we have available. So I'd like to turn this, for an explanation, turn this over to Dana Roa, our city clerk, who will speak a little more on our Heritage Room exhibits.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you were saying, this new year, we decided to take a new look at this program and observances and how we respect them and recognize them. So what we decided, we wanted to come up with a way to tie the history of Norco, the Heritage Room that we now have refurbished, into our observances. So now we will be recognizing the national observances not only with a proclamation here at City Council, but we will also have exhibits from Norco's history that'll relate to those observances. So Black History Month and so on. Each month we will have an exhibit. And then the Heritage Room will now be open. It'll be like on Throwback Thursdays, and it'll be Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it is with our our communications manager. She's come up with a great Discover the History, and it'll all tie in with our observances. So what we've done, not only just one day here at City Hall or at Council recognizing the observance, we'll have it all month long for the community to come out and see our Heritage Room, see the history of Norco, and we'll have one exhibit set up that'll coincide with the observance. And also quarterly, we'll be doing some programming on the second Saturday of the month that will have speakers come out. We'll start having programming at the community or at the Heritage Room also. And those will coincide with different events and the history of the events, like the fair and the Day of the Cowboy and events like that. So we're really trying to tie our Heritage Room into other events that we're having and getting people out to see and experience all of the wonderful culture that we have in our Heritage Room and all the hard work that Amy and her volunteers are doing at the Heritage Room, getting these exhibits up and running. And the room looks fantastic, thanks to our facilities and maintenance director too. So again, I'll invite you all to come on Thursdays, and we're just doing 10 to 2 right now as we work on and see what the volume is. You can also make appointments with myself, and I could meet you at the Heritage Room, or we can also talk about donations. If you have donations, we do vet them and have a form that we go through for donations for the room also. But that's where we're at. We're excited to enjoy the whole month, not just one evening at City Council. So thank you, Mayor, for my time.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, we're going to go into regional reports. We'll start with Councilmember Bash. Well, it's a good report, Kevin. It's a good way to start. Fia?
Yes, so on February 13th, I attended my first meeting of the RTA Transportation Now meeting. It was very interesting, lots of information. Currently, youth 18 and under still ride free through the month of June of this year. And it was just very exciting getting to learn all the different routes and everything that they're doing. They're proposing updates to some of the new, to some bus stations and how they pick those, or not bus stations, bus stops, and the criteria that they used, how they pick them. So it was all very interesting. So that's
Thank
all.
you, Fia. Mr. Bowen?
Nothing to report.
Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
Okay. All right. So February 6th, had our Chino Basin Desalter Authority Board of Directors meeting, and some good news came out at that meeting. We are receiving a rebate for our water purchases of the year, approximately $89,000 this year is coming back to our water fund. So that's good news. And then the same day, met with Assemblymember Bill Asaley, Councilmember Bash, and our communications manager to discuss strategic communications regarding a letter we wrote regarding the RTRP. And we just keep plugging away. I don't know, Kevin, if you wanted to throw anything at it, other than this was a bipartisan letter signed by both congressmen, county supervisors, assembly members, mayor, and the mayor of Corona. And hopefully they take it to heart. And that's all I have to report. Okay. Dana, call upon the city clerk for public comments.
Yes, this is the time when persons wishing to address the presiding governmental body regarding the consent calendar or matters not on the agenda may be heard. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. The governmental body shall not discuss or act relative to any general public comment. And our first speaker is Elise Rico.
Hi, Elise.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to come introduce myself. My name is Elise Rico. I am the new field rep for Supervisor Karen Spiegel covering the city of Norco. I'm also the media coordinator for Supervisor Spiegel, and I cover veteran services as well, being a veteran myself. But I did want to put my face in front of you so you know who I am. I will be at any upcoming events that you guys will be holding, and I'll leave my card with Dana. If you need to reach me or get in contact with our office at all, please do not hesitate. I'm a communications major, so open to communications. Thank you.
It was so good to meet you.
Our next speaker is Jeff Cahat.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City
Evening,
Council.
Jeff.
I'm sure you're going to mention this a little bit later, but I just felt compelled to come up and say a few words about Norva Williams. It's very rare that a community has the kind of volunteer support that we have here in Norco, and we've got so many. But when we lose a pillar of the community like Norva, it just really hurts. It really hits hard. We sadly had to go through this with Ted Hoffman a few years ago, and Norva, thank goodness she was recognized for her spirit of volunteerism by being recognized last year as an inaugural member of the Kathy Azevedo Spirit of Norco Monument. So that was a great thing that she was recognized last year. Just personally, I've enjoyed the times that I've spent with her, parking with Mark Moore's crew at the Hillside Craft Fair, working with her at parades and all the different events with the fair and Horse Week and everything else. And I know we're all going to miss her, and but I just felt like I should come up and just say a few words. And like I said, I'm sure you're going to say something maybe a little bit later, but it really goes to show the kind of community that we have, that we've got not just Norva, but so many like her. But her absence is definitely going to be felt. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and hopefully, people will step up and fill some very large shoes that she left behind. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I have no further speaker cards, Mayor.
Thank you, Dana. Move into item 3, consent calendar. Any council members need to pull any items? Give me that again, Kevin. D, G. Okay. I'll ask for a motion to approve the rest. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
A motion and a second.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 3D, that was pulled by Councilmember Bash. Kevin?
So, I know we all got a letter from somebody on the Measure R committee, and I'm actually hesitant to support this, and the reason is because I just have a concern that we have different areas where we're funding, something that is the responsibility of the residents. But as I say that, I have a concern that we need to understand that our entire historic district rests on large lots to trails to open space. And so we have to do everything we can to protect the open space. The historic district. And I guess the other part of it is Chad, is that the best we can do in terms of that number of trails, in terms of the cost of what it'll cost?
Well, it's based off of our current pricing that we just recently went out and renegotiated with Nova. So, and we have a contract that still goes 4 more years. So we think we have a pretty good pricing. We get a very good service.
No,
So
I
I'm
agree.
very satisfied with it. So I think we get a good value for what we are going to pay. And it's, again, almost 10 miles of additional trails that we've been maintaining. So that's a pretty good price, I think, and gets a lot of benefit to the community.
Are we going to, at this point, deal with some of the encroachments?
Yes, that's the goal the primary goal of this was, number one, is as we've done a few of the trails that we have completed, we want to get them right into maintenance so they don't go back to where they were. So far, in the trails that we've done, we haven't gotten to the encroachments. When we do get the encroachments, we will definitely deal with the encroachments. We just haven't reached those locations yet that have physical encroachments into the trails, but when we do, we will handle each of those one at a time.
Okay. So anyway, those are my reservations. I'm going to support this because I believe we need to support the trails. And even though I'm loath to take the responsibility, then this is now probably forever. I am going to support it, and in the interest of maintaining our historic district, which is protecting us from SB 9 and SB 10. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
If I could, any other council members have any discussion on this? Go ahead,
Can we
Rob.
just get clarification? And I'm not sure if this is a Chad question or a Colin question. And I know, Chad, you and I had an email back and forth about this particular topic. Municipal code states that basically trail maintenance is the responsibility of every adjacent property owner, correct? Whether that's like Temescal or Sierra or wherever. And I feel like we had the discussion, and again, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, that when we went to having a trail maintenance program, there was discussion at that time, like, why are we going to be spending money for something that is already per municipal code, like a responsibility of property owners and all of that? What I need clarification on is what is the difference between a backyard trail and like the trail in front of my house that I take care of on Temescal?
So the backyard trail is still part of their legal property. It just is an easement for trail purposes that's been designated basically in perpetuity for public use for trails. And in most cases, it's usually about 10 feet on either side of the property, so about a 20-foot trail on average. And that's basically part of their property. They still pay a property tax for that 10 feet that's their part of their property. It's just an easement that's forever across that property. And in most of the cases it's really most of our trails that are backyard are on the west side of town. As that area developed, they chose to put them in the backyard versus doing a frontage trail, which in the opposite direction is, in most cases, the trail itself is a dedicated public right-of-way. So when your property was built, that portion that might have been part of your parcel originally was all dedicated as development occurred. So now that's a physical city property. And the trail is part of that designated use and a parkway and then the street. So there's the difference as far as one is dedicated to the city and one is an easement for this, but it's for the same purpose.
Perfect. So then just kind of discussion from me. I follow along the same lines as Kevin. The trails are what makes Norco special. It's what makes Norco unique. And I feel like because it is a part of the historic overlay and all of these things, that instead of saying, as we do in municipal code, like, hey, property owner, this falls on you, that really the city in doing the trail maintenance is stepping up and saying, we're a partner in this venture of protecting our lifestyle and protecting what we have. So it's more of a partnership instead of like putting all of the onus on a property owner. And I think looking at our trail maintenance program today and the amount of work that we do, looking at what our trails were before driving through town and then driving through town now, like it's night and day. I don't think there would be any argument from anybody that the dollars aren't well spent and it hasn't been like an upgrade for our community. And then with the email that we received from the resident the other day, like I went back and reread municipal code several times, and then I was thinking, like, what are the arguments or justifications for this money that we've spent and are potentially going to approve more? And it really is about protecting the lifestyle and protecting our community from all the things that Kevin said and maybe some things that will potentially come in the future. And then the other thing that I was thinking about the other day, and with backyard trails in particular, number one, it's impacting a specific location in town where it's an accessibility for people on the other side of town. And I think the other thing is council is constantly getting feedback that there's speeders, there's all this traffic and everything. These backyard trails for like novice riders or people that are stressed out about being on some of the main streets are areas where they could go and ride and not feel the extra anxiety of being adjacent to traffic. So I know I was somewhat conflicted in getting the email, and it did cause me to have some extra diligence in reading, but I think as far as being able to justify, there are so many more reasons why this can be justified than reasons why it maybe shouldn't be done. And I certainly understand the points that were given in the email that we received. But our job is to set policy that protects our community now and into the future. And I think these dollars are well spent in doing our part to do that for our community. So.
Thank you, Robin.
I have one question.
Sure, Kevin.
Maybe we can get something in return. Alma, right now, if you build an ADU in that area, the property line is the middle of the trail. So we now have some ADUs that are literally, we have one in particular right on Corydon that's built right to the fence line because they used the middle of the trail as the property line. Is there some way that we can put something into our code that says, okay, we'll take care of the trails, but henceforth, the property line that'll be utilized for doing a building will be 5 feet from the fence line and not from the middle of the trail? Maybe that's a Colin question also. Because as these ADUs come more and more, they want to utilize as much of their property as possible. But since we're going to take care of the trails, maybe we can actually get something that's pretty significant in return.
I think there's something we can do with that. Let me think about it and talk to Alma, and we'll see if we can come up with something that works. There's an issue with putting it into the code, and is it a benefit to everybody, and are we singling out ADUs? But where it sounds like the thought is going is kind of using the carrot and the stick, and this being the carrot, it's a good idea. We can get people to voluntarily comply by moving their ADU back and get a reward for it. So I think there's something we can do with that.
Well, even if it's not an ADU, they build a barn. It goes to the middle of the trail. I mean, I would just use that as an example.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and let me talk to Alma about it, and we'll see if we can bring something back to you.
On that same note, Colin, though whether it's backyard, front yard trail, on the backyard trail, that's a permanent easement for that. So I would think it wouldn't be so much from the property line other than that width of that easement. from center line back. And then you would take your setback from that dimension.
That was my argument when I saw it go in.
Right.
I was told by John Harper that, no, they go by the middle of the trail. I said, why are they not going from the fence line? Because it's an easement. So if we
Yeah.
could clarify that.
I'm correct on that, Chad, right? It's a permanent easement.
It is.
Right. So make it so. Entertain a motion in a second.
Motion to approve.
Dana, we have a motion and a second.
Please vote. A motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3G, Councilmember Bash.
Yeah, my concern is, I just feel like that's a lot of money for what we're getting. I'd like to figure out a way to maybe spell out a little bit more exactly what the contract entails in terms of just help, because it seems like we haven't gotten anywhere with it. And I don't know, how does everybody else feel about that? $115,198 is a lot of money. And right now, in the spirit of our federal government that's cutting costs, maybe there's some way we can look at that, or is that the going rate? Who knows about this? Alma, pretty satisfied that you've worked this to the,
Yeah, I am.
I'm also worried we're going from one city manager to a different city manager. There's just a lot of changes that have occurred.
Understood. And this is something, this is stemming from our commitment in our housing element. We made a commitment to look into reestablishing these programs that were once in effect. And so this is where this is stemming from. What the consultant is proposing to do is to, bring those programs up to date to current housing law, and basically administer the program to make it available to our, administer and oversee the program to make it available.
She'll be on site and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they'll be working remote, but for, to be able, they'll administer it. Basically, it won't fall on us. I mean, yes, somebody will have to oversee it, but they'll be administering it to the public. So that, to me, that's, they'll act on the city's behalf to implement these programs. So they'll be like city staff.
So this isn't just an extension of what we were doing before. This is a brand new.
No, this is, yeah, we're reactivating these programs and basically revamping them to be compliant with state law. And I mean, it's the intent is to use the low moderate funding.
I
to be able to
understand
fund
it.
that.
I just never saw a whole lot that was going on this. So who's on that committee? Robin? Who is on that committee? Is there a committee for this?
No.
No.
All right, I guess it just seems like a lot
I
of
mean,
money.
this is basically a function that we've had since redevelopment days.
No, I understand.
Right.
I just haven't seen a lot of,
And I understand the sentiment. I think hopefully, this time around, it'll be more effective and be able to be implemented in a more efficient, effective way. So that's the goal.
Does this help us with the state, do you think?
It is, we committed to it in our housing element, so that's why, we
I
had to
get
reach
that.
out,
All
yeah.
right. Well, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions, staff? Or Greg?
Yeah, how long does this last? Is it something we have to redo every year? Or is it something that is just come up? Do we have to do this every year? That's my,
Well, it's intended, how long the program will last, I think it's a matter of funding. So this could go on for a substantial amount of time. And as far as the end date, I don't really have the answer to that at this point.
I have just kind of a comment, if that's okay. So when I
Sure.
was reading through this, I do also share concerns about the cost and with the consultants and that, but I'm really excited to get these programs going. Sounds amazing. I just really want them to happen. But something that's just kind of popping out at me when I was reading all this is that this particular program seems to work a lot with our code enforcement department, which I know is really struggling right now. I think it's understaffed or.
That is correct.
So that's where my concern is we really need code enforcement to be working functionally at 100%, especially if we're going to have this on top of it.
Yes, and that is correct. And the reality is you know, we will work in concert with not only our code enforcement but our building official as well. But yes, you are correct. We are working on getting our code enforcement staffing, you know, back up to par, hopefully soon. But no, I appreciate that comment because yes, that is definitely a concern of mine. I appreciate that. And you know, once these, and I imagine that, you know, once these programs start get rewritten, we'll be able to bring them to the council to take a look at how you know, how it's going to be written, how they'll be administered. So hopefully that's reassuring.
Any other questions, comments? Kevin?
Motion to approve?
Have a motion and a second, Dana?
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to discussion, action items, our order of presentation for discussion, staff report, presentation, council questions of staff, public comment, council discussion and action. Item 5A, I'm going to call upon the city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. As you read in the staff report, the California Rehabilitation Center sent an email on February 11th that they are establishing an advisory committee with the intention of continuing to build a working relationship with our community leaders and stakeholders. And they did invite the Norco City Council to join and in this opportunity and bring concerns and suggestions to this committee also. So what I have before you today is to discuss this committee and the participation and direct staff if you want to continue participating with or begin to participate with them or send staff or both. It's up to you. So it's at your pleasure. I just wanted to bring it before all of you before we made any decisions.
Thank you. Does council have any questions of staff?
Dana, do you recall when this, because my understanding was this committee was in operation for a while, and then did it just go dark, or did they stop reaching out, or what happened?
They stopped having the meetings during COVID. This is
Okay.
actually,
was-
this is actually a state,
That's-
this is
that was
actually a
it?
state
Yeah.
mandated
Okay.
committee. And it's actually been in effect for, my father sat on it in the 60s.
Okay, that's what I thought, so.
And it's like they're revamping, trying to reach back out.
Okay.
I think with everything was happening with the prisons,
Oh,
the
yeah, we were-
closing, and so
gotcha.
I think it's stemmed that to regroup with their stakeholders and the community.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any public comments?
I have no public comments on this item, Mayor.
Okay, bring this back to council for any discussion and action. Kevin?
I would like to sit on this committee. I did for a long time, and then they just stopped, and I know the most about it. Same warden, different warden, do we know?
I don't have it. I believe it's a different warden than we were. I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
That's good. They
of
were
where we are
upset with
today.
us because of our position on Blythe. And so I think that's why they discontinued. So with the new warden, I think that maybe, I think it's important we maintain, I mean, they do a lot of business in our hotels, they do a lot of business in our restaurants. And but I would be happy to sit on that committee.
Are there any other council members that are interested?
We have two,
It didn't state that, but
but we can have, from
You have
our
two?
end, we can have two because it won't violate the Brown Act.
you're going to have to be on your best behavior. Lesson I learned. Is any staff interested also on serving?
I haven't had any of the staff. I'm not sure if you want, like the city manager as like an alternate if one of the city council members cannot attend, or you can ask for one of the staff members to attend also.
But if we can have up to two, I mean, one's sufficient. Is that correct, Kevin, for those meetings?
I just was referring to two council people.
Okay.
We've had that in the past. Catherine and myself sat on it.
Well, I'd make a motion to move forward with this and that we support and appoint council members Bash and Bowen to serve on this advisory committee.
Okay. Newton, Grunmeyer, let me just have that in.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, okay. Please vote. Thank you. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, we're going to move into our public hearing portion. Our presentation on public hearing items will be staff report presentations, council questions of staff, open public hearing, closed public hearing, and council discussion and action. So we'll move to item 6A.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Mayor.
that would be Colin, thanks.
Yes. Proposed as item 6A is an ordinance adding section 15, adding a section to the Norco Municipal Code that creates a local appeals board to hear appeals of building code related citations, and it also designates the Planning Commission to serve as the local appeals board. So why are we suggesting that? Case law recently, under Cal law, all cities must adopt the California Building Code as their city's building code. You can make changes for unique climate, topography, seismic issues. The building code designates who must hear certain appeals. Under a section of the California Building Code, every city has to have a process for hearing appeals of building code related violations, decisions, notices, anything falling within the construction codes. The appeals must be heard by the city council unless the city council establishes a local appeals board. If there is no local appeals board, the city council must hear the appeal. Recently, in a case called Temple of 1001 Buddhas, the court cast doubt on the ability of a city to use a single hearing officer as a local appeals board, and instead we need to have a body of at least 3 members. To avoid hiring a consultant to have a 3-member board serving as our local appeals board, the thought was, let's use the Planning Commission. Planning Commission has experience, authority in interpreting city, at least city building codes, zoning codes, the like. So we thought the Planning Commission would be a good body to serve as a local appeals board. The local appeals board's decision can be appealed in the same way as any other planning commission decision can be appealed. So if council still wants to hear a matter, council can appeal it on its own. If an applicant is unhappy with the decision of the planning commission, the applicant can appeal it. This ordinance makes no change in the actual substantive building code provisions or zoning provisions. It just changes the process that an appeal would be heard. Normally, we would use a hearing officer. Under this, as the law requires, we can now offer a local appeals board. I believe, and what I've seen in other cities, is we will still use a hearing officer. We'll offer an option. Would you like to go through the local appeals board, which is the Planning Commission, which will involve a decision in front of a hearing body? Or instead, would you like to waive your right to that and go to a hearing officer? Most people prefer to be heard in front of a hearing officer because it's more informal. So chances are we won't get many of these going to the Planning Commission. They'll still be in front of a hearing officer, but we will have the Planning Commission as a backup in case somebody wants to press it, and so we don't have to interrupt council's schedule with these appeals if we do get a lot of them, while keeping council's discretion to still hear any one of these cases that it wants to. That is my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions of staff? Well, I have one. So how would this be if I wanted to appeal a planning commission's decision?
It would be an appeal to the council.
Okay. Do you have a question, Greg? No? Robin? Thea? Kevin? Okay. Going to open the public hearing. Dana, do we have any public comments?
I have no public comment cards.
Thank you.
Mayor.
I'll close the public hearing and bring this back to council for discussion and action. Greg? Robin? No, this is the end. So, okay. Thea?
I'm just kind of a little on the fence with it. I kind of feel that by doing this and we're shifting it to the Planning Commission, it kind of decreases the amount of, discussion and feedback and discretion that we can have as the city council on a matter. I kind of feel it's more, I'm just not sure if the Planning Commission is the right way to go.
Is that a final decision? So let's say it gets appealed back to the Planning Commission. Is that decision final? Or what's the next step?
Any person who is unhappy with the Planning Commission's decision, any applicant, not
Right.
staff, any applicant can appeal to the council. If the council is unhappy with the Planning Commission's decision, the council can itself appeal the decision up.
Right, but if the Planning Commission is the appeals board, and I'm not happy with that decision of the appeals board,
It's not final. Council still has the final say, even of the local appeals board. It's called a local appeals board, and that language it's what is used in the statute. It's confusing because it sounds like a court of appeal that's the hearing body. It's not. They're still under the city council. The city council is the ultimate decision maker.
Look, Colin, can I clarify something? Because we had this discussion. So my understanding, correct me wrong, is that it's either going to be in front of a hearing officer or in front of the Planning Commission. They choose one of each.
Right.
And if they want to appeal that, either one, it goes to the council.
Right.
It doesn't go to Planning Commission, then council. It's one or the other.
That's right.
And they
Okay.
always have that option either way. So ultimately, council's going to be the final decision person, whether they want to hear it themselves or if they
Right.
want to appeal to you. I did want to ask a follow-up question is, like Planning Commission appeals, which normally there's a fee associated with that, is there going to be one with this for the applicant? Or
There should not be a fee for this because we're dragging the applicant in by issuing a citation. Typically, when somebody asks for a permit, asks for some kind of a right, they will submit an application packet, come to the counter, and pay a fee for that. In this case, we're bringing them into the process. So there's a due process issue with charging people a fee to have an administrative hearing to challenge a citation that we've issued.
Does that help? Kevin, anything? All right. What's our preference? Any motions?
Can I read the title? It's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, adding section 1501185 to the Norco Municipal Code to establish the City Planning Commission as the city's local appeals board.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, item 6B. This is Alma.
Yes, good evening, council. This agenda item 6B is ordinance 1129-1. And this is a consideration for an extension of the existing temporary moratorium that the city council established last month, 45 days. What staff is requesting is an extension to that moratorium to allow us to complete the research that was as directed by the city council. Staff is recommending approval of ordinance 1129-1, which would extend the moratorium for 10 months and 15 days, excuse me. And the intent is that, again, is that to give us a little more time. And we don't anticipate it taking us that amount of time, but at least it'll give us a buffer to bring back what we need to the city council as directed. So with that, staff is recommending that the city council approve the extension via resolution ordinance 1129-1, and I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Any questions to staff? Hearing none. I'm going to open the public hearing.
There are no public comments, Mayor.
I beg your pardon?
There were no public comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council discussion and any action. Kevin, comments? Thea? Robin? Greg? Okay,
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay. This is item 6E. This is an appeal hearing of the Planning Commission denial. Alma?
Yes, council. I need the clicker. Good evening, council. Once again, this agenda item 6C is an appeal hearing of the Planning Commission's denial of a accessory building use permit 2024-06. As I indicated, this is an appeal hearing. What went before the Planning Commission was an accessory building use permit for a request to allow a 557 square foot detached garage at 3332 Vandermolen Drive within the Norco Ridge Ranch specific plan. Planning Commission denied the application, and the applicant has appealed to the City Council for a determination. As I indicated, this property is in the Norco Ridge Ranch specific plan. It's a single-family home. What was proposed to the Planning Commission is an accessory building, a garage, let me see if I have a pointer here. There it is. Garage here in this area here, it's highlighted. It's a 557 square foot garage. And with that, the applicant was proposing a separate access road to the PACA on the opposite side of the house, which is shown here in the, with an arrow. And I'm just going to point out the elevations and the floor plan. So the access, the reason why this project was denied by the Planning Commission is that the Planning Commission determined that the access road was not appropriate. It was too steep, being at, let's see, I believe it was, what is it, 16% grade. They did not feel that was an appropriate access to be able to get to the PACA. So that was proposed on the side of the house. And this was the cross-section of what was proposed to the Planning Commission. As I indicated, the Planning Commission denied it. Applicant has appealed. And with the appeal, the applicant is requesting that the City Council consider a revision to the access way And with that revision to the accessway, the applicant is requesting that the city council consider it in their consideration of this appeal. What the applicant is now proposing, that same accessway, same location, is just at a lower percent grade from 16 that was reviewed by the Planning Commission to 5%. There is a cross-section here that shows that the way make it flatter. And there is a cross-section indicating this where the red line is how it would be close, how close it would come to the house. So the applicant is requesting consideration of this new grade for a possible approval. Staff's recommendation is that the city council revert this back to the planning commission so they can review it and make a determination on whether to approve or deny. The city council, however, has the right to make a determination. And if there is a determination, staff will come back with a resolution reflecting the determination of the city council. With that, I will conclude and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Any questions of staff this time?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Greg.
I go by and look at it. If you look at, you go back to the other plan where it shows the garage right in front of the ADU. Go back. Right there. With just flat not approving this, it's basically whoever buys that house is gonna have to haul all their hay and no place to park their trailer. So whatever we can do to get them access to get in the back, to be able to get a trailer, because if not, they're gonna be carrying their bales of hay. That ADU is gonna have parking right there in front of that building, so there's really no place for them to park a trailer, and there's no place out front because there's a garage right there. So, in my opinion, I think we need to work with them and try to get and hold the garage as hostage. It's a bad word to say, but use as an excuse to go ahead and get them a driveway so they can get to the backyard so they can use the horse keeping area. That's my thought.
Robin? Question to staff? Via? Kevin? Okay. Is it a question for staff, or would you rather wait to hear from the applicant or under discussion? Then go right ahead.
So I just want to disclose that this matter came before me while I was on the Planning Commission, and I voted against it. That decision is now before this council on appeal. The applicant the council is now considering is different than what was presented to the Planning Commission, and I have no bias against this project. However, I spoke with the city attorney, who advised that to avoid even the appearance of bias, I should abstain. Based on that advice, I'm going to abstain.
Is it okay for Councilmember Sullivan to remain up here?
It is, so on a financial conflict of interest, under the Political Reform Act,
Right.
the disqualification would involve announcing the financial interest and leaving the room. This isn't a financial conflict of interest, so there's not a requirement to leave the dais. You get to sit there in blissful silence as you watch everybody else debate this, but abstaining means no participation in the matter at all. So there's no reason to leave the dais, but you will not want to participate in the decision or the questions.
Okay. Thank you, Colin. Sure, Kevin.
If it goes back to planning, are there any financial ramifications other than what they paid to appeal it?
No, it's the same application.
And I have one question, Alma, this time. It lends me to believe that the approval of this revised driveway would also constitute approval of this garage/cabana.
Yes, because That is what's before basically the application is for that garage. The applicant is going further to be able to provide an access way. So if it's part of the project. So in essence, it's the accessory building that's being up for consideration.
Okay. I'll hold everything else till discussion. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Dana, do we have any comments?
I have no public comment card. I'm not
Is
sure
the-
if you want to call him the applicant.
Does the applicant wish to address the council?
Good evening. My name is Andy Yu. I'm the applicant for the project. So we try to comply with providing a good access for the parker because by building that ADU, we basically blocked the access already. So by building a new a more accessible ramp on the other side of the house, will provide like efficient access to the park area, so make it the property more useful. So hopefully we can go back to planning commission and get approval.
Okay.
Okay.
May have some questions afterwards. Any other comments?
No further comments, Mayor.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'll be able to refer back to comments of the applicant or architect when I close the public hearing?
Yes, they're the subject of the hearing. They get additional speaking
Thank you.
time, just like staff does.
Okay. So we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council discussion and action. Anybody want to start? Okay, I will. So you can go back to that overall site plan if you want to.
Just keep in mind that this is the revised one shows the
Sure.
revised, but this is the one that was reviewed by Planning Commission.
Okay, not to belabor anything to beat it into the ground, but I mean, the start of all of this was the misplacement of the ADU. As far as I'm concerned, it did not follow the directions of the specific plan, Norco Ridge specific plan, that required any habitable structure had to be 35 feet minimum distance from the animal keeping area, which in this case is not the case. So I'm over that heartburn and then moved on to that. So the ADU is built, and then the access to the PACA is basically today around the swimming pool, which for years this was addressed by the Planning Commission since the early 2000s when Norco Ridge Ranch was first developed. So going back through what the rules are, under Norco Ridge Ranch typical yard spacing setback under the master plan, I won't read the whole item, but equestrian pedestrian access is in regard to each lot as it's developed. All lots shall have a minimum 15-foot flat physical access to the rear yard, clear of all obstructions and improvements, along with a 12-foot rear yard access gate. And that's in accordance with condition of approval number 115 and city ordinance number 761. So looking at what's being proposed on the north side of the property, I don't know if you can blow that up a little further. It shows it on the trail. The trail portion is approximately a 1 to 2% slope, which 1% is relatively flat. You could maybe have a discussion on 2%. So you have a cross section that you could bring up, Alma. A new one. So, well, you can go back to that old one. That was at as it came across the trail, it was like 2% slope to the street, and then it was, I can't read it, but it looks like a 7% slope, something like that. Okay? And that's Planning Commission denied that. So now go to the new proposed one. And you'll still see that 1% to 2% slope at the street. And then what is to be flat is now a 5% grade all the way back to the PACA. And was, once again, is not per the conditions of approval or the ordinance in Norco Ridge specific plan. And what I also have heartburn with is that there's a trench drain shown, probably like off a building corner, and then the surface of that driveway is compacted sand. And my experience would tell me a 5% slope of sand and having a trench drain there, that trench drain is, to me, I would render it useless in the first rain. It's just gonna fill up with material. Driving around Norco Ridge Ranch, or you can look at this property, when its original access was for the PACA, it's an impervious surface to the building corner, as the majority of the properties are in Norco Ridge Ranch, and it's flat, with probably not exceeding more than 1%. So my feeling at this time is that I'm not approving this drawing because it's still at a slope. And the requirement is it has to be flat, obviously allowing a slight percentage for drainage. But 5% to me is still too great, and it's a straight grade from the street to the animal keeping area. It's, to me, it doesn't work. And it's, like I said, it's not what was approved years ago. You know, sorry it got to that point. You could, I don't know, to me, it's like, if you think you can drive a hay truck and a Farrier truck around a swimming pool for access, then maybe you need to put your garage in the cabana area on the north side of the property and drive a car back there along your swimming pool. That's my 2 cents for now. Anybody else have comments?
I think it should go back to the Planning Commission for review again and reconsideration.
That it should?
Yes, it should. I didn't
Greg,
know.
any comments?
I drove by and looked at it, and it looks worse on the plans, in my opinion, in which I, doing a little grading, I mean, you look at some of the places that are up on, by Mount Rushmore and up like that, those places are atrocious. But I'm looking at a resale value for the house for horse property, and I'm just thinking out loud here. You're gonna have, whoever has a horse wants to have a trailer, and they're not, and the people, they're gonna, with the ADU, you can rent that house out, so you're not gonna be able to park in front of the ADU, because that's gonna have to be parking for the ADU. And if we can give it back to the Planning Commission for them to revise it so they can have parking on the other side, I'm all for that. Because we gotta have some place for them to park a trailer and have decent access, not to be able to drive a hay truck around the pool and not it just, in my opinion, just looking at it, I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want to buy the house the way it sits for horse property. And if I looked at it, I would have to pass it, because I would say, there's no place to park my trailer. You know, there's no place to, I'd have to hump all my bales in, because people are gonna be parked in front of the ADU. Or even my mother-in-law's parked there, her car's gonna be parked there. you know, is she gonna avoid my horse trailer every time she pulls in? Like I said, I'm just thinking out loud. It makes the best sense of having the driveway on the other side. And if the owner's willing to flip that cost now, it's gonna be beneficial for us when he sells that. It'll still be usable horse property, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, let me add this. I don't have a problem with the driveway, okay? What I have a problem with is the percentage of grade, because it's not what was the ordinance condition of Norco Ridge Ranch. So flat is fine. And a lot of thought went into that with all these grades, right? To keep it flat, whether it's 5%, 7%, that, you know, originally planning turned it down because you'd high center any type of trailer that you were trying to either pull in or back out of, whatever. And it's not that, you know, animals aren't going to be kept on that property today, but it's in the future that we need to protect. And that's why this ordinance was written back then, was to protect animal keeping, dictating that it's flat, okay? And not at a percentage grade. But I don't have a problem with the new access. It's just make it work to the ordinance. Kevin?
So we had no choice, Alma, where the ADU went, right? That was basically a state mandated. They could pretty much put it where they want.
You want, but you can't require more than a 4-foot
Can you speak up a
setback.
little?
You can't require more than a 4-foot setback from property line, and that's what we.
I know this seems nitpicky maybe to people that have purchased in Norco. I understand that. But the issue at hand is that we are the last one. We are the last city. The reason that the half acres exist is because it enables us to have large animals. Whether you have one or not doesn't really matter to me, but that you always have the ability to do it. And we're constantly trying to find ways to protect a very particular lifestyle. Every other city, what happens is that they start giving in here, they give in there. They think, well, you know what, if we just rezone this area to put in this many houses, that'll bring us some tax increments. We have not only worked to try to protect the large lots, but we've also created a diversified funding system so that we're one of the few solvent cities in California. More than half of the cities in the state of California are insolvent, as is the state. So I know sometimes it seems frustrating what we're trying to do. The other thing, I just want to make sure people understand that this is a city where you cannot put in an ADU and split it from the property and sell it. You can't do that because we're protected by our charter and we're protected by our historic overlay. And I just want to make sure whenever we talk about this that people are mindful of the fact that yes, you can build an ADU, but essentially you cannot split it away from the property, which is, I forget if it's SB 9 or SB 10. So I feel bad when a property owner comes in and they're trying to figure out a way to work this. But pretty much all of us were elected with that mandate to protect a particular lifestyle. So I'm with Robin. I know she's going to speak, but I'm with her. I would like to send this back to Planning Commission, have some more eyes on it, see if we can work out a solution so that in the future somebody can actually use this as a horse property. And that's really the goal. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else, Robin?
I make a motion to send the applicant back to the Planning Commission for review and reconsideration.
Under discussion, will you, in that report, will it be okay to reference to the Planning Commission condition of approval 115, ordinance number 761. That dictates what the access is to be. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to send this back to the Planning Commission.
Please vote. Motion passes with Councilmember Sullivan voting no, or excuse me, abstaining.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. City Council Staff Communications. Dana, anything? Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank the council for the approval of the trail funding tonight. I just want to acknowledge that I'm really excited to see us really get a whole house, whole citywide, including what Amanda does with the LMDs, of trail maintenance, and it's been a long labor of love and pain for, I know, the Stuck Committee in working on this. I want to acknowledge their work for doing all the work just to lead up to the point where we could do trail maintenance and having our standards and requirements of what we want to achieve. And then thankfully the residents passing Measure R, because the only reason we're able to maintain that today and is because of Measure R. And I want to acknowledge that. And so that money is being used wisely, especially knowing that we have adopted a historic district for our trails. So I think it's very important that the council has literally put the resources there that we can keep these to the point where the residents enjoy them as they are today. So I just want to thank you for that, because it's no small feat what we've been able to do. And I recognize that there's a lot of people that have been involved to get us to this point, and we should all be proud of where we are. And I know there's still work to do, but I appreciate the resources that'll get us to that final point where we have literally every trail actually maintained on an annual basis. And I think that's a great accomplishment. On a second note, I do want to apologize for those who had to deal with the issues on Hamner Avenue yesterday related to between 6th and really all the way to Schleichman. That was a contractor mistake. They were supposed to pave only from Alhambra to Detroit, and instead continued on to 6th Street, even though they weren't supposed to. So once they started tearing up 6th Street, I basically told them, tearing up the road all the way to 6th Street, I said, you're moving the rest of it and give me all brand new asphalt. So it took them a lot of time to get that chaos back into some order yesterday. It really didn't end to what they did until about 10 o'clock last night, where they did finish the southbound lanes. They had finished the northbound lanes today, but it was not our finest moment, but it was entirely a contractor issue. But once we got it started, we did our best to get them out of the way. But I know there was a ton of complaints, certainly from folks that were coming southbound from Eastvale. The backup was horrendous, and it lasted all day long. So I just want to at least give you some information on that in case you heard about it or saw about it. It was disappointing to see how badly that contractor performed on that issue. And this has to do with the work that you authorized them to do in doing, instead of slurry seal, doing the grind and overlay. So we're going to work on the next phase of that when it gets to the Citrus to Schleichman area that they have to do. But we're going to do that plan quite a bit differently. We're going to limit their work that they can do on a daily basis so that we control, the chaos that they unfortunately will likely cause again. But we're inching our way to that finish line. But we're getting there. So I appreciate everybody's patience yesterday, but it's not what we wanted to have happen, but we got through it. So I apologize for that.
In somewhat of your defense, but one recommendation would be, that's why you have marking paint that stop limits. But there were, some of the feedback that I got was, but there was signage, maybe more on the Eastvale side, that there was work going to take place. And then another concern that people have, why don't you do it at night? And it's basically, I don't know if you want to make that statement, but it's temperatures that dictate paving at night compared to during the day.
If this was summertime, we could do it at night because of
Right.
the temperatures, but it's so cold at night that it really makes it difficult to have a good product if it's below certain
Yeah.
degrees. And it's been getting pretty cool. So if it's in that 40, 50-degree range, you really don't want to put asphalt down at that time at night. So we did think about it, just wasn't possible.
Amanda? Anything from community services, communications? Colin?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Alma? Lieutenant? You don't want to mention that you're going to be speaking at Horsemen's Association tomorrow night and passing out courtesy cards?
Speaking tomorrow night at Norco's Horsemen Association.
Chief? Thank you, sir. Greg? Robin? Fia? Kevin?
Just so you guys know, the Western Regional Council of Governments, we're now looking for submissions for persons or groups to receive the Western Regional Council of Governments Person or Group Person of the Year Award. So if you know a group, just contact me and let me know, or if you know a person that you think is worthy, who's done lots of charitable work, lots of things for the community. Elected officials are not allowed to participate in this particular thing, but if you just know somebody, last year we actually had two groups. We had Leaps and Bounds, and then we had the Blue Star Mothers, which a good percentage of them live in Norco. And then I'm still hoping, can we just call the fire marshal and just call the fire marshal and say, you know, we need to take this tour. That's really the person we need to connect with and find out if the paperwork, if Edison has in fact provided the paperwork for the last 5 years, which is, my understanding is that's a requirement. And if we could just find that out and walk that, I'd love it too, Jessica, if you could walk with us, just to look to see if in fact the lines as they stand today are in fact safe. I mean, they're leaning over, they've got wires connected to them. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff over there. There's literally now bushes going almost touching the wires. I'm not sure what wires they are, but I've been asking for almost a year. I know you've been kind of busy. I'm not blaming you, but really it's the fire marshal we need to talk to. Okay, it's a woman, it's a new one, we met her. Where does she live? Anyway, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just getting frustrated because I'm a little worried about what we have out there going into the summer. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. So, to wrap this up, this year's been pretty tough. It hasn't started out the way I was hoping for, and God, I hope it gets better. As Mr. Cahan mentioned, we lost a dear friend last Friday, I believe, February 8th, with Norva Williams. There will be a celebration for Norva at Nellie Weaver Hall this Saturday. I think approximately about 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And, so obviously her family and friends are certainly welcome to that. I think I'll have more to say about Norva on Saturday. She was part of our Friday night date group for years, so going to certainly miss her there. And I think what makes it a little tougher for me, so I'd like to close the meeting in Norva's honor, but I'd also like to, this weekend, the 23rd, is the second anniversary of Ted Hoffman's death, of Ted passing away. So I'd also like to include, just to have thoughts with Norva and to remember Ted and Jean Hoffman. So if we could have a moment of silence. adjourn.